This program is brought to you by Parkway Cancer Center. There is a common perception that oncologists, doctors specializing in cancer treatment, are merchants of hope, prescribing patients with confidence when there seems to be none, especially in the case of patients at advanced stages of cancer. Dr. Ang Peng Tiam is the medical director and senior consultant medical oncologist at Singapore's Parkway Cancer Center. In the early 1980s, when medical oncology was still widely perceived as a depressing field of work due to the limitations in cancer medicine and technology, Dr. Ang decided, after graduating from medical school, that he would focus his career on this path less trodden. During his 25 years on the job, Dr. Ang has witnessed a revolution in cancer treatment, so much so that these merchants of hope and their patients overcoming the odds are occurring much more frequently today. Cancer is widely perceived to be a modern-day disease, with man's increasingly hedonistic lifestyles being blamed most often for the condition. The very thought of cancer sends shivers down many a spine. The disease has claimed so many fatalities that almost every cancer patient experiences that same crippling fear of staring death straight in the face. Cancer, for the longest time, had such a terrifying track record that for many, it was understood quite brutally as a death sentence. Fast forward to the present day, however, and advancements in cancer drugs and technologies have brought cancer treatment to a whole new level. As a young doctor, Ang Peng Tiam set his sights initially on cardiology, but was persuaded by Dr. Kwa Soon Bee, then Director of Medical Services from the Ministry of Health, to specialize in oncology. There had already been a great demand for oncologists at the time, especially with the number of cancer patients on the rise. To make matters worse, few doctors at the time were eager to work in what was considered a depressing field because of the high fatality rate. Today, with the introduction of new drugs and technologies, the chances of surviving cancer are far greater. But the success of any cancer treatment still often hinges on the will and spirit of patients themselves in their fight against the disease.
I believe one of my strengths as an oncologist is that as a general, I'm a happy person. I'm a very optimistic person. And I'm very enthusiastic in what I do. When the patient sees a doctor who says, look, this is a tough illness, these are the things that can go wrong, but these are the things which we can do for you, it often perks them up. It often helps them to find hope and courage to fight on.
Indeed, it is that optimism that gave 38-year-old Addison the courage to fight his stage 4 cancer. As normal as Addison looks now, his life in the past 8 years was nothing near normal. A marketing officer at a bank in Manila, Addison is married and has 2 teenage sons. He led a simple and contented life that revolved around his family. But it was thrown into disarray when he was hit by an unexplained bout of diarrhea that persisted for more than a week. After a colonoscopy, Addison was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2005. Sadly, the scans done with the colonoscopy showed that the cancer had already spread to the liver.
When he came to see me in October of 2005, he already had cancer recurrence. His cancer had recurred in the pelvis, that's the lower part of the abdomen, and it had already metastasized to the liver. So from a stage 3 cancer, instead of being cured, he had already developed stage 4 cancer.
It was March 2005. I had a severe diarrhea for almost a week. My brother, who is also a doctor, recommended me to seek another doctor and recommended me for a colonoscopy. After the procedure of colonoscopy, I went back and the doctor told me it is a probability of having a tumor. So that's the time we do more biopsy tests and told me that I need to undergo an operation.
Cancers are generally labeled from stages 1 to 4, depending on how far they've advanced. These stages allow oncologists to determine more accurately the patient's chances of cure and also the treatment needed to achieve the best possible outcomes. That in turn helps them devise a treatment program. Stage 4 cancer, also known as metastatic cancer, is the most advanced stage of cancer. By the time a cancer hits stage 4, the cancer cells would have spread from the originating organ to other organs in the body.
Stage 4 cancer, by and large, is considered an incurable cancer. But we do know that there are selected groups of stage 4 patients with very limited sort of a spread who may do well. These are especially the ones whereby the cancer has only spread to the liver and no other site. In Addison's case, it had already spread to the liver, but there was also recurrent disease in the pelvis. So if you ask me at that point, did I think that Addison was going to be cured of his cancer? My honest answer to you is no.
Addison's morale hit rock bottom. The future, in his eyes, looked increasingly bleak.
I know little about cancer. I know it's a life-threatening disease. What alarmed me is during my stay in the hospital, a lot of friends of mine keep on visiting me. That make me fear that maybe I'm in danger. What I did, I just surrendered myself to the doctor. I know that they can handle my case.
Miles away in Singapore, cancer struck another life, silently but deadly. On May 17, 2010, 40-year-old Adrian Fonseca visited his general practitioner with complaints of stomach issues. What was thought to be some innocent abdominal discomfort turned out to be huge masses which were biopsied and confirmed to be stage 3 lymphoma. Within 24 hours, Adrian's life changed completely.
When I went to see Dr. Chong at Glen Eagles, I was dressed in my suit. I went to see Dr. Chong and then I expected to get some medicine from him and then go to work. 24 hours later, I'm in like a robe, in a wheelchair, in Glen Eagles, I'm about to have a scan, people are putting lots of different things in me. It was quite disorientating.
In 2005, Addison was initially diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in the Philippines. Colon cancer is among the world's top 3 most common occurring cancers. It has a higher incidence among individuals with more affluent lifestyles, with diets rich in meat and fat. Cancer has often been called the silent killer, and for good reason. The disease tends to reside quietly in one's body for years without any visible symptoms. Claiming even those with healthy lifestyles and eating habits, cancer is a disease without a conscience. Addison has led a healthy lifestyle all his life. He neither smokes nor drinks, so his condition baffled both him and his physician.
The seed and the soil theory says that the person who is genetically predisposed is exposed to even the least amount of carcinogens, he or she may develop cancer. But in contrast, some people who are just genetically, the genetic makeup is such that they're not prone to it. So they can have all the vices, they can eat all the fatty food, all the barbecue that they want, you know, and they can smoke, they can drink, and yet they don't get cancer.
40-year-old Adrian Fonseca believes that external factors were the cause of his predicament. Together with his wife and 3 young children, Adrian left the comfort and familiarity of Australia 3 years ago for a job here as a banker. But his new life was disrupted and put on hold when doctors discovered he had cancer.
I was in a highly stressful job before I got sick, and I have no doubts about the fact that, you know, the stress that I was under in my job in banking during the financial crisis contributed to a lot of what happened.
Adrian was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma in May 2010. Albeit being a generally treatable cancer, lymphoma can kill if left untreated or if proper treatment is not administered.
Many people confuse cancer which has metastasized to the lymph nodes as lymphoma. That's not lymphoma. Lymphoma is cancer that arises from the lymph node itself. In other words, it's a primary cancer of the lymph node. There are two broad groups as far as lymphoma is concerned. There is Hodgkin's disease or Hodgkin's lymphoma, and there's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Even amongst the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, there are many types. There's the T cell, there's the B cell lymphoma, and even among the B cell lymphomas, there are many types. Some are low grade, some are faster growing, and some are very, very aggressive cancers.
While the news of cancer left Adrian torn and devastated, a glimmer of hope still remained. Leading him through the battle was an oncologist armed with an undying spirit.
To meet him is, I think, to meet, you know, one of the great, you know, and world-class doctors in the world. I think the thing that you've got to have with your doctor is you've got to have some chemistry. So immediately, you know, I enjoyed talking to him. He was funny. He was probably jovial. He was very well suited to me because being a banker, I like to deal in sort of numbers and probabilities, right? So he was telling me that he was giving me like approximately like a 90% probability that I would be cured, yeah? Which was music to my ears, right? The message you wanted to hear was, don't worry about it, you're in my care, I'm going to look after you. So, you know, he was sort of extremely direct and very frank, and I loved it, you know what I mean? And from that moment on, I just put my complete faith in him.
Dr. Ang's infectious optimism renewed Adrian's fighting spirit. Despite the long and daunting road ahead, Adrian walked on, knowing that every step brought him closer to being cured. With the discovery of recurrent cancer in his liver and also his pelvic area, Addison's cancer progressed from stage 3 to stage 4. A cancer at such an advanced stage is reputed to be incurable, with death being the only way out. Yet, there are exceptions, even in science.
But when you talk about stage 4 lung cancer, stage 4 breast cancer, stage 4 stomach or stage 4 colon cancer, the large majority cannot be cured. But in colorectal cancer, there are some stage 4 cancers that still can be cured. I often say that these are the patients whereby the disease has only recurred in the liver alone. And I think that about 1/4 of these patients will still stand a chance of being cured if they are treated correctly.
The first step to treatment was chemotherapy to exterminate the cancer cells in the liver. Addison went through 3 months of chemotherapy and responded well to the treatment. He is now in remission. Patients whose cancer cells metastasize to only the liver actually still have a fighting chance of being cured. But with cancer metastasizing to both his lungs and his pelvis, Addison did not fall into that rare group of stage 4 cancer patients. However, the initial success of chemotherapy in Addison's case prompted Dr. Ang to go one step further in the treatment.
It was at that point whereby we felt that it was important to gamble, so to speak, to give him a chance of a complete cure.
The tumor in Addison's liver presented Dr. Ang with 2 options of treatment: conventional surgery to remove the tumor, or the application of a new breakthrough technology known as radiofrequency ablation. The good news about lymphoma is that the cancerous cells are extremely sensitive to chemotherapy and radiotherapy, making it easier to eradicate the cancer. True enough, within 6 cycles of chemotherapy, Adrian was in complete remission.
One of the major advances in treatment of lymphoma has been the discovery of monoclonal antibodies. This particular monoclonal antibody, called rituximab, which Adrian is on, has been found to be very effective in improving the cure rates for B-cell lymphoma patients who are on chemotherapy. In other words, the studies have shown if you give patients chemotherapy alone, let's say for example your cure rate is going to be 60%. By combining chemotherapy with the monoclonal antibodies, your cure rate improves to 80%.
Rituximab works by attaching itself to the B cells of lymphoma. This way, this antibody serves to deactivate the cancer cells and eliminate them. In the case of Adrian, he was given rituximab in conjunction with chemotherapy. Today, he continues his rituximab infusion as a form of maintenance treatment to keep the cancer cells at bay, thus lowering the chances of a relapse.
Whether his disease will actually relapse in the future, God only knows. We know that he's in remission, we know he's doing well, and we certainly hope that by using the monoclonal antibodies, we can keep his disease at bay for a very long time.
As for Addison, between surgery and radiofrequency ablation, Dr. Ang made the decision to opt for the latter.
Addison did not just have metastasis to the liver. He in actual fact had metastasis to the liver as well as in his pelvic cavity. So by definition or from experience, these patients are not likely to do well. They are likely to recur sometime in the future. His disease in the liver was relatively small. By the time the chemotherapy had worked on that tumor, we were left with a very small lesion which could very easily be ablated. The radiofrequency procedure is inexpensive with very little risk. The patient comes into hospital today, has the procedure done within 48 hours, he's out of hospital. So when I weighed the pros and cons, I felt that it was more reasonable for us to just offer him the radiofrequency ablation.
Radiofrequency ablation is the insertion of a probe into the area of the liver where the tumor resides. An array of several small, curved electrodes are then deployed from the end of the probe into the tumor. The RFA machine then generates an ultrasound, a very high frequency wave, which in turn creates high temperatures to burn the affected tissues in the liver.
We were one of the first to start RFA when the technology became available, and that was about 10 years ago. And over the years, we've built up a huge patient base with a large experience. We're doing about 120 to 170 RFAs per year. It's specifically for small tumors, in general less than 3 centimeters in size, although we have been doing quite a number which are larger than 3 centimeters. And they're specifically for tumors within solid organs. That means within the liver, the lung, the kidneys, or the bones. Not for cancers in hollow organs like the intestines.
Today, after 8 years, Addison's battle with cancer is far from over. Once every few months, he makes a trip back to Singapore for his follow-up sessions with Dr. Ang to keep the cancer cells at bay. Yet, having lived much longer than most patients diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, the slight inconvenience is a small price to pay in exchange for a chance to live. Addison's long-term doctor-patient relationship with Dr. Ang also highlights the importance of patient participation in the cancer treatment process. The treatment of cancer is no doubt the result of a seamless partnership between the patient and a team of doctors.
Those who follow my plan will often stay on with me, like in the case of Addison. You can see his treatment with me has gone on for more than 5 years. And yet he has come back, following each step of the way because he believes that I will do what is best in his interest.
With the combination of drugs, treatment technologies, and a substantial amount of optimism and patient participation, miracles can happen. Today, Addison is not clinging to a hope too far-fetched, a goal beyond his reach.
Right now, I'm almost 80% from my previous health. And I'm looking forward to regain my previous condition. What do you need is to be brave, to face the reality, to have a strong faith to overcome all these trials.
Now in remission, Adrian is back at the workplace and visiting the gym regularly. In retrospect, not only has this cancer episode been a close shave with death, it has also brought the family closer together, especially with his wife Nancy, who has stood by him through these tough times.
In a way, it was actually a gift for Adrian and I, that even the time that we were spending together in the hospital, we were actually really connecting. And in a way that, you know, I'm here for you, and I know that he was just so strong all the way through that he was also saying to me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to come through this for you and our kids. And so it was a real strengthening of our relationship.
If I look back on the whole experience, I always say to people now, and that's why I enjoy talking to you, today, that it was an extremely rewarding experience because I got to spend a lot of time with my wife. And I say to people, I got to fall in love with my wife again.
The examples of Addison and Adrian have shown that family support and optimism are the bedrock of every battle against cancer. Cancer is not a death sentence, but a war that can be won with the right drugs and a large dosage of perseverance. This program was brought to you by Parkway Cancer Center.